Hello everyone, welcome back to SwitchUp and to the episode where we look at a few games that we've been playing recently. And actually we've got a load of brand new ones, haven't we?
Yeah, we've actually got one that's not even out yet.
Yeah.
We've got a bit of a preview on one game that's coming out next month, I believe it is. So yeah, 6 games in total to speak about, and as Mark says, yeah, fair few new ones.
Save yourself some bunts on physical games, digital, all of that stuff. It's all down in the description, all the information you need.
Lovely stuff. So which games have we been playing? Well, let's find out.
Alright, let's start then with the one that you were talking about, a bit like Resident Evil. Is it Lorelei and the Laser Eyes?
Yeah, Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. So as you say, yeah, quite rightly, it's very much got the vibe of classic Resident Evil with those fixed camera perspectives. Quite a slow burn, this one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've heard a lot about it. There's people really enjoying this one, but I think they really do throw the kitchen sink at you in the first hour, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So you basically you arrive at this mansion. You've been invited there. You know, very vague as to why to begin with. You kind of meet the owner of the mansion, and he's obviously there's something going on with him. It's something not quite right. But you're kind of left to explore this mansion when you first get there. And as I say, think Resident Evil, you know, moving from screen to screen, fixed camera perspectives, lots of investigating what's around you, clicking on items and you know, reading the dialogue. But it's a huge, it's just puzzle after puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you think of Resident Evil, as you know, it drip fed it. You know, you arrived at the mansion. You didn't expect, or you split up with your team, sorry, you found some blood on the floor, you put this in there and it opened one door, and you started to realise what you had to do, whereas here, every door is locked. Every single door in this place is locked. Everyone requires a puzzle. Some of them obviously you won't be able to solve yet, but it's quite overwhelming to get your head around what you can do that early on.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it feels, I think it's intentionally overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, from what I've read from a few full reviews of it, it kind of builds on that idea of a non-linear, what's the word? Like I don't even know what you'd call this. What would you class this as?
Well, I mean, in terms of how it plays, it feels like it's going to be survival horror, although it hasn't presented itself that way yet.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I understand what you mean in terms of non-linear. So it's not necessarily non-linear in having a variety of places you can go. It's more, it doesn't tunnel you towards the obvious.
Yeah.
One
first
puzzle
entrance for the next. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, I'm saying all this without a positive or negative intonation. It just is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
But I am quite intrigued by it, and I think we put about an hour into it, and we did quite well actually. We started to solve a few puzzles, and we made our way through. We met a lady. We had to go to our room basically, didn't we? We had to check into our room.
Yep.
And we did that, you know, eventually, and there was a lady in there, and she had an affliction with her eyes, didn't she? I'm assuming, you know, hence the title of the game. So obviously we were just getting to a point where I think it was going to start to build into something more. But it's definitely one that's got its hooks into me in terms of I'd like to see where it's going to go.
Do you know what intrigues me about it? It's made by the same developer that made Sayonara Wild Hearts.
Oh yeah, I've played that.
You've played that?
Yeah, I like that
you
game,
recommended it, and I picked it up on sale. And it's only short.
Yeah.
But it's kind of got a brilliance about it. It's bonkers.
It's very good game. That's like a rhythm game, isn't it? Where you're flying through like these very whimsical and obtuse levels, and you're like fighting people at times. It's something to do with love. I remember that much. And you're kind of fighting like the King of Hearts or something, you know. And it's got that like love theme with it. This obviously is very different, but it does have that similar vein of obscurity about it. Yeah, it's very obtuse to begin with, but it does do enough to not. You don't give up. You're not like, oh, sod this, you know. And it also has a very interesting art style with that monochrome colour palette, and obviously it just has splashes of red or pink, you know, that makes its way through, you know, with the eyes again. And yeah, I mean, it's one where having, you know, if you've played enough of the game, or as much as the game as we have this one, good hour at least, you know, maybe a bit more, you feel like you'd have more to say. Whereas I feel like I can't say much here, but not because the game is it's a lot of the same thing to start with. It's a lot of just walking around, lots of locked doors.
Yeah.
Almost looking for puzzles rather than puzzles presenting themselves to you.
Exactly.
Because you're looking for something to then unlock some of these doors. But like I say, it's not a negative. It's just different. It's not what I expected.
Yeah, I think we'll probably play a bit more, won't we? And see where we get to. But I think it's definitely, I can see why there's so much positivity around it. But I think initially, if you just played a short bit, like maybe a bit less than us, then you could be put off by the sheer weight of puzzling.
Yes, or the weight of expecting there to be puzzles because there are so many locked doors, but not actually finding the puzzles to unlock them straight away. It's a strange, or it's a bold design choice to almost lock your player out of so much of the game without giving them hints as to how to get in.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to work. I have this feeling it's going to work. I think it's going to come together and be a good game.
Let's find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Next up then, something completely different in every imaginable way.
Yeah.
We've got Tokyo Cooking, which is actually the sponsor of this episode. They've asked us to have a look at the game, so we sat down and cooked some sushi.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, I mean, it's a cooking simulator, isn't it?
I've just realised I said cooked some sushi. That's a bit embarrassing. You don't cook sushi at all, do you? That's the whole point. It's raw fish, isn't it?
Yeah, but is it sushimi is the cooked?
Oh, hang on.
You cook some of it, don't you? So it's sushimi is the actual...
That's what I meant.
I think. I don't know. I've never tasted it. I wouldn't even attempt it, to be honest. But I think sushi is the fish, is the raw fish, and sushimi is the actual...
So either way, I was wrong
ensemble.
on both accounts.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking with any authority on it. I know it's something to do with that.
Someone help us.
Yeah, but you cook the rice, don't you?
You cook it.
So there's an element of cooking to it.
Oh, yes.
But in terms of the game, yeah, it's more of a cooking simulator than I expected it to be. I thought it was going to be like Diner Dash or Order Up is another one. Actually, it's quite similar to Order Up in some ways, actually, saying that. But where you're just stacking orders and chucking them out.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's very much about cooking or preparing the meals, isn't it?
Yeah, it's designed to be like a relaxing cooking simulator. You know, you've got chill music. You're really going through you could say monotony of each process, but it's also there's like that perfectionism element to it, isn't there?
Yeah. So, for example, to begin with, you'll be cooking things like, you have to help me with the pronunciation too. Is it onigiri?
I think that's the one.
Yeah. So you'll have to get the rice and wash the rice, and then cook it, steam it, whatever it is you do with it. Grab the fish, use the sauces. Yeah, by the tail, slap it on the board, no mucking about.
And then slice it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get the sauces, mix it, all that. So the whole caboodle, you do the whole process all the way through, and obviously you are scored on how precise you are. There's a lot of almost like mini games, aren't there?
Yeah.
Waggling the stick and pressing the buttons at the right time, that sort of thing. And then you're scored, and then the money that you earn from that score, you can then use when you go home at the end of the day to decorate your house.
Yeah, so when you're making the different dishes and things, there's a list that you can bring up by pressing the minus button, and it will kind of keep you on track. We did notice a few things, so like when you grab your ingredients, you place them on the board rather than on their silhouette, which confused us a little from time to time.
Yeah, exactly. It had, as you say, a silhouette just to show you what you need, but it really, no matter how many times I kept telling myself, it looked like you had to place them on the silhouette. You don't, you just have to touch the preparation board, the cooking board, and you'll start to need obviously different boards for your chop somewhere else as opposed to where you'd mix, say for example, and you have to wash, as I said, and whatnot, and there's a little kitchen or what would you call it?
A pantry?
Pantry's a good word, yeah, thank you, to get your ingredients from. But it is very laid back. It's not stressful at all.
No, there is a time element, but it's kept very under the surface, so people who are waiting at the desk, they're not like gradually going red and steam coming out their ears and stuff. They're just chilling, and then they seem pretty happy with what you dish up. So yeah, there is that time element for those people that want to make more money, but it's not kind of forced down your throat, for want of a better word.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed this actually. I must say,
it's chill, isn't it?
It's a nice, relaxing game. Little quirks of games such as this, like when you're trying to grab an item, you always seem to overshoot. Steering, if you like, onto the item with the stick. But it's nothing that these games don't seem to suffer from in general. And having it not be timed, like proper timed, was a nice, deviation away from what you usually find.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I was going to give one bit of advice to the developer, it would be to make it so that if you put your items on their silhouette, that counts.
Yes.
It just makes sense to people, and I think it should be an easy little tweak to make.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that's that one. Go check it out. We'll pop links to that in the description and the top pinned comment. Obviously, they're the sponsor of this video. And now it's time to move on to something completely different again, and that is Monster Hunter Stories from Capcom.
Yeah, so this is not out yet.
No.
This comes out next month on the Switch.
Yeah, Middle of June sometime.
Yeah, I mean, it's been out before. It's a game that's getting a remaster, or obviously a port to the Switch. And I'd never played this first one. I've played and reviewed the second one, and obviously we've played the series Monster Hunter for a good few years now. This is completely different. This is a turn-based RPG, isn't it?
Yeah, completely. It's quite a simplistic story, I guess. A Naga Cougar rocks up to their village and wrecks everything, and then you head out with your own monstie, they're called in the game, that you've managed to kind of acquire. And it feels mechanically very similar to the sequel as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, the sequel, obviously having played the sequel first, it clearly built on what the first game built up. And as you say, so the Naga Cougar is there, and he's clearly the main antagonist, but I don't think the story yet is about him. It's more about the young character. Obviously you can create your own character, but their rite of passage into becoming a rider, and just going on that journey, and obviously your path is going to cross with this Naga Cougar at times. But in terms of the way the combat works, it uses like a rock paper scissors style, doesn't it, where you have speed, is it technique and power, and obviously one always trumps the other, and you need to try and start working out which of those categories each of the monsters falls into, and obviously try to supersede them in terms of that battling. But you can also use, I think they were called kinship attacks with your monster. So you build up kinship with your monster, and then you can synchronize with them and do a more powerful attack. Yeah,
they seem to do an attack after you within your turn, so you're basically essentially doing double damage.
Yeah, not just that though. So you and the monster will attack separately, but then you can come together to do a more powerful attack as one. Like you get on them, and then you do a more powerful attack.
Oh, did you do that on that boss?
Yes,
nice.
Yes. So that's the kinship attack, and your kinship level, as it improves, obviously the attack becomes more powerful.
Okay.
And through that as well, you can then start to acquire rarer monsters into your party.
Sweet.
So yeah, all of that was in the second game. So they obviously carried all that over into that sequel. Obviously this is just a preview of it. It's not out yet. It's certainly not a review. But just on face value, just on very early impressions of it, this is a game that you could really get into. It is very story heavy, have to say that, and you need to be prepared to watch through some early cutscenes to get to the meat of the game.
Yeah, I think when you're doing like we're doing for this video, we tend to try and, we want to skip through, don't we? Because we want to see the meat of the game to show people and tell them. But I think for most people, they'd probably be chilling. But Glen's right, it's like an hour or so, isn't there, of like narrative, shall we say. The Switch version of this does look incredibly good. Like you're looking at native resolution by the looks of it. Very smooth. I was really impressed because I saw that my daughter played through this in its entirety on the iPad. And I remember seeing like it was quite rough around the edges. Right. So Capcom have done a lot in terms of the visual here. It's impressive. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, I mean, I also am not sure if the original was the 3DS, I believe, whether it had those cutscenes, or certainly whether they'd have looked as they look here. As I said, I never played the original, so I couldn't comment, but I'd be surprised if they were in there looking as good as they do now. That's for sure. One thing I will mention, because he was in the sequel as well, the cat character. So obviously you have the cats in Monster Hunter.
Yep.
Difference being in Monster Hunter is that obviously they talk in terms of text, but they don't actually speak. There's no voice to them. Here you have a cat companion that just does my head in. It's like being followed around by Scrappy-Doo.
He's great.
He's not great.
He's so great.
You ever watched Scooby-Doo as a kid? And whenever Scrappy come on, you'd mute it for a while.
Love Scrappy.
Oh, of course you did. You turned it up, didn't you?
Awesome. Turn it up, if anything.
Turn it up.
Yeah, no, he's that classic slapstick character that kids love and Glen hates.
Yep.
Like, that's what it is. You kind of know what you're getting with him. He's a right pain in the butt. But thankfully, there is the volume button for that very reason.
Yeah, it was invented specifically for this character.
But so far, it seems nice, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, we have a review for the sequel if you want to have a watch of that. If you want an idea of how the series looks, I'm sure we can put a link somewhere. But yeah, this one is out next month.
Next up, we've got an action puzzle adventure called Hauntii. Now, without being completely superficial, I'm going to be very superficial. This one looks lovely.
Yeah, it does.
Like, it doesn't it just look lovely? Uses those. It's not just monochromatic, is it? Because does it count as monochromatic when it's green and blue and it's kind of that sepia?
I seem to remember reading the blurb for the upcoming games when this released that they called it two-tone. It's a two-tone palette.
Right.
So it's not always monochrome. It takes, two tones of a colour, and from screen to screen obviously changes it up.
It looks brilliant. I mean, most of the games we've covered today have artwork you could use for screenshots. But you'll probably see quite a few while I'm screenshotting as I'm playing, because it looks amazing. It does that thing where the camera like pans out sometimes, and you've got this massive view of almost like this two-tone city in the background. It looks amazing. So you play as the title suggests, and I wasn't sure if it was Hauntii until I started playing, but it is Hauntii, as in you're a ghost, and you have your haunting ability to essentially haunt different items in the world and then control them, whether it be monsters, in air quotes, that you can then use their weapons to help you fight. And it's like a twin stick shooter, so the right stick you just point it and that shoots. You don't have to press another button. Or there's like items in the world you can haunt. This like there was like a lamppost that I haunted, and then I could like raise it up like a telescope for no reason at all. By the looks of it, you know, I wasn't entirely sure. But I should imagine they're going to build on that quite a lot. We've only played a short bit. There is combat in there to some degree, but if you leave the light areas, the world starts to close in. You see the little monster's eyes come out of the darkness and stuff, and you're trying to collect different things that you then use to form constellations to unlock doors. I think you did that.
Yes, yeah, and when you achieve that, you go to like another plane, like another world, and you are given a choice of upgrades. So it could be health or your dash ability. So obviously you start to build those up over time as you go through the game, which is quite an interesting way of having some sort of character development, you know?
Yeah, it's nice to have a twin stick shooter that's relaxing. That's not something you hear every day, is it?
No.
You know what I mean? It's like relaxed pace. It's got that really nice soundtrack in there. It's just quite unexpected, honestly. And I'm quite keen to see, like you were with the Lorelei and the laser eyes, you can kind of tell this is going to go to a few very interesting places.
I liked, I mean, you've mentioned the art style obviously, but I liked how it, not just the colour, but the actual drawing of the world. It was done, it was like line art, but it was done in a way, it reminded me of like scratching off from charcoal.
Like lithographs.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Onto that obviously two-tone background. It just, it's very stylish.
Yeah. Very
stylish, quite minimalistic, but stylish at the same time.
I will say out of the games, everything we've mentioned so far, this controls the best.
Yeah.
Like super smooth, super silky, you can probably see it. It just feels good when you're playing it. So yeah, so far that comes from Moonloop Games, and I don't actually know any of their other games. Does that ring a bell to you?
No, it's not one I've heard of, I must say.
No, I don't know if this is their first game, but yeah, so far so good, I'd say.
Nice. Well, my major one that I've been playing recently, or I played recently, it doesn't take long to finish, is Super Mario Land, which has just been added to the Switch Online Game Boy app, whatever you want to call it.
Such a good game.
Oh, it's a great game. I really do think it holds up very well. I mean, it's only short. It takes like half an hour to play and beat. But it's a game that I've played. I mean, it came out in '89.
Wow.
I think it came out in 1990 over here with the Game Boy.
Oh, man.
And but it's still playing it. So what? However many years?
20,
it's more than that, isn't it? It's 30.
Oh,
34,
what? 34?
Yeah, 34 years ago.
Man.
It's crazy, 35, depending on your reason.
Did you? Oh.
Yeah, crazy how long ago it came out, but it's such a good game. And I think it's always been classed as like the black sheep of the family because it looks so different and it controls differently and the power-ups are different.
So good.
But to be fair, I mean, at the time, Super Mario Brothers came out in '85, so obviously Mario was in its infancy in terms of what they were going to do with it, and the Game Boy was brand new.
Yeah.
And Gunpei Yokoi, who created the Game Boy, also developed this game. So they were obviously just getting a feel for what they could do with this. And the sequel, Mario Land 2, kind of shows that because it was so different, with a few years more development behind them in terms of what they could do with the Game Boy. But I just think this is a great platformer.
So this was 1989.
Yeah.
When did the Game Boy come out?
Well, it launched with the Game Boy.
Okay, so I remember because my parents couldn't afford it at launch, and then I had to wait for, I think it was Christmas so it might have been like Christmas of just before 1990, and I got the Game Boy with this. So this was my first Mario.
Yes.
Ever.
Yeah.
I remember it was just unbelievable. That's that music, man.
The music is great.
Oh,
yeah, the music is brilliant. I got this a few years after launch because I remember the Christmas I got Game Boy and I got Mario 1 and 2, the two games. But I also remember that Christmas I got Batman and Batman Returns on VHS.
Nice.
So Batman Returns didn't come out until '92. The VHS would have been at least a year later.
Yeah. So
we're probably thinking Christmas '93 I would have got this.
Yeah.
So it'd been out a few years by then. But yeah, I love this game, and I played through it this time, beat it in half an hour. I actually beat it without losing a life, which I've never done before.
That's
the first time I've done that. But I've played this game to death. You know, I have played this game a lot, like to the point where in the footage you might see like I'm finding all the hidden one-ups and stuff. You know, which they were hearts in this game as opposed to the mushrooms and the fire attack. You know, when you get like the fire flower in Mario games, here it was like a ball that bounced into the floor then shot about the screen. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
And you had to use it to collect coins that were hidden in obscure places, and it's just such a fun game. And you had two like shooting levels, one where you were in an aeroplane and one where you were in a submarine. Which just changed things up completely. And I'd love to see a Mario game set here again. So this was set in a different place. It was like Saraza Land or something. I can't remember. you were rescuing Princess Daisy as opposed to Peach, or Princess Toadstool as she was called back then. And I'd love to see them do something in this world again. You know, a 2D platformer using the same power-ups, similar music. I would, day one, I'd buy that. Even if it was half an hour long, I'd buy it just for the, you know. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't watch these days half an hour's worth of gameplay, but great game, great game.
There are a few companies that are releasing games for old consoles, aren't there?
Yeah,
that's cool. I really like that. The idea of demaking and just going back to basics.
Yeah. A lot of those do use the Game Boy. The Game Boy is one of the ones that's demade for the most, you know, and they come with kind of classic-looking packaging and stuff as well, don't they?
I'm gonna have to get myself some Game Boy games for Christmas.
Yeah, I've been playing a couple lately.
Have you?
Actually, on the Game Boy,
Nice.
on the original Game Boy. I'm playing it actually on the, to be fair, on the SP.
Right.
Because it had a lit screen.
Yeah.
But it takes Game Boy games. I've been playing Popeye. It's actually Popeye 2. It's called Popeye 2, and that's a platformer. Very good game, that.
Yeah, nice.
Like that one. And James Bond game.
I remember that one.
Which was like a top-down, you know, like adventure game. Quite advanced for its time.
Yeah.
Actually, you know, you think of licensed games, we've spoken about them a lot, and you think they're just rubbish. This is quite a decent game.
I remember it being quite hard.
Yeah, pretty tough. You have to find items, and you know, obviously, a bit like, I say Zelda, just because it's easy for people to visualise, isn't it? That top-down adventure type game. But yeah, decent. Obviously not on the Switch, but worth seeking out if you can find them on eBay or whatnot, you know?
Yeah, there is actually a device, I forget the name of it, so maybe someone can help me in the comments, a recent modern device.
Yeah.
And it will play all old cartridges, do Game Gear, Game Boy, it's got like adapters for other ones, links and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I might be making a purchase.
I think you have like, is it the Retron, Retron 5, Retron 6,
nice.
something like that. But yeah, they do all that. But yeah, no, it's nice to play the games, you know, the original games, the original cartridges sometimes.
It is. Last up then, we've got Saviorless, which I've just noticed is only 11 quid. That's a decent price, to be fair. This comes from developer Empty Head Games. It was sent over by a mate of ours. Hello to you, you know who you are. And by all accounts, I think these guys have been working on this game for like 8 years. I think he said something like that, years and years, whatever it was. If it wasn't 8, then I apologise profusely. And it's not an overly long experience, about 4 or 5 hours. A side-scrolling, like puzzle adventure platformer with action in there. It's very unusual. It starts with like a group of narrators, and there's like a head narrator telling the other two basically that you can't ever finish a story. Like for some reason, like the protagonist needs to have this quest to go on, but there was something about them ending it that was going to cause an issue. And then they go ahead and start their own narrative because they're bored of the one that you're playing as, which is quite ironic, really, as we'll talk about in a minute. And then they start another narrative with this kind of aggressive character that then gets unleashed on the world, and I think then becomes the antagonist for the game.
Yeah.
But you've got a really unusual mix of elements here, I think. You've got this platforming, seems pretty straightforward and whatnot, but then you've got this what would you even class the other elements as? Like, obviously the other character's action based, and like you start out by fighting a boss and stuff like that, but then also with platforming you expect this kind of tightly animated character, and I was struggling a little bit with the main protagonist.
Perhaps it's intentional. Bearing in mind, because we started playing and the backgrounds look lovely,
amazing,
really, you know, quite beautifully drawn, and then you have this character, obviously your protagonist, who I was saying to Mark, like, we were kind of trying to find something we could compare them to, and my mind was going to that character Doug that used to have a TV show, a character in terms of like appendages.
Yeah.
But you said like olive oil out of Popeye.
It's olive oil.
Yeah, you know, like a strange merge of those two, and you kind of get this main character. And I'm not saying that disrespectfully, it's just that the animation and the movement of them, which is at complete odds with the backgrounds. But maybe if the idea of the game is this quite dull protagonist that the children have got bored of, and therefore change the story, which unleashes this evil, maybe that was the point.
Yeah.
But it doesn't affect the gameplay, that's going too far, but it does just, it's always in the back of your mind, isn't it? They just don't quite look right. Yeah,
it doesn't quite merge, does it?
Yeah.
With everything. Now, by all accounts, you go back and forth between the two.
Yes.
And I much preferred playing as
the antagonist,
the darker character. Just from every aspect, you know, controls everything. Like the fact that it can do combat, it can do damage to things. So I guess, you know, over the course of the 5 hours, maybe they really flesh out those two ideas a bit more. But you know, there's a lot of pulling things around, climbing onto them, little puzzles and things. It seems quite good. You do die with a single hit. I know it's not the first game to do it.
No.
But it sometimes comes at inopportune moments.
Yes, there was a moment where you had to push a cart across like a rickety bridge, fully expecting it to break and drop the cart down to a lower level where you needed it. But we were killed whilst pushing the cart by the thing that was meant to break the bridge.
Yeah.
You know, that's disappointing, because then when you restarted, you were down below with the cart ready to do the next bit, and it kind of killed that moment. What could have been quite an interesting animation of falling through the gap was spoiled.
It was completely gone, wasn't it? There are pages of the book. You can collect these pages to give to one of the characters as like the game's collectible. That was quite nice. I do like having something else to do, you know. And I also noticed a few points where I went past things that you could obviously reach that I just didn't manage to. So there is a little bit extra in there.
Yes, yeah. It's funny, the story actually reminds me of Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which came out in the early 90s. I think when actually? About 94, I think. And I think that's a film that's ahead of its time. So it's quite interesting to see its story almost told in a game so many years later, almost to prove the point. Because it was a film that didn't do very well. It was a Nightmare on Elm Street film. Yeah. When the series had kind of run its course and they were looking to inject new blood into it. So they went back to Wes Craven. And it was about Freddy Krueger. Now the stories had been told and the films had finished. He was like this latent evil that needed to find a new form. And because the stories had stopped being told, he could escape from the stories, which is basically what this is setting up, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, complete side note, but it's quite funny when you watch a film back in the day that doesn't perform well and people say, oh, it was probably ahead of its time. And then you hear the same story again. Yeah. 30 years later, proving that point, you know? Yeah, completely. No, I mean, I can tell it's good. I just don't know it's whether those bits all come together. Yeah. You know, at the moment, we're in that stage where it's just feeling a little disjointed. So we'll play a bit more and see where it gets to. But you can't argue that it's not a beautiful looking game, you know? Oh, for sure. Yeah, and lovely use of colour at times as well. When you kind of emerge from the dank like dungeons you're in and up to the surface, it does, yeah, it looks lovely. So that's it for this week. I think that's one of our best interesting games videos in terms of content that we've done. Yeah, some really I don't
try not to say interesting,
but you know, like very different.
Yeah,
you know,
eclectic
mix. Very eclectic mix of games in this one for sure. Yeah, lovely. As we said at the start, we've got discounts to pretty much everything to do with Switch down in the description there, so go check that out. We get a little kickback when you do so. And just a big thanks to all of you. We've had a couple of new members this week. I think we've had one rejoin, and then we've had like a couple of new ones. So thank you very much to them. Yeah, thank you. Very much appreciated. Thank you to our patrons as well, of course, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos. Take care, and until next time, happy gaming.